What's up, YouTube? Today I'm going to make this Green Lantern power battery that lights up, and I'm also going to make this Green Lantern power ring. And the ring was requested by a subscriber. Anytime you guys want to request something, that's awesome. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. It gives me new ideas and new projects for new videos. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into this. Alright, so to make this Green Lantern ring, I did buy a few things. And one of the first things I bought was these little adjustable rings. They were, I think, $3 for three. Yes, $2.99 for three of them. So I figured if I screwed one up, I still had more. So basically $1 each. And I spread this one out to actually fit on my ring finger. And this isn't going to be seen. This isn't going to be exposed. This is going to be covered with EVA foam. I just wanted a base and a reference and something solid for the size of my finger. I was looking at O-rings and gaskets and different stuff. And I ended up going to the craft store and I found these. And for the centerpiece, with the lantern and all that, I actually went out and purchased, it's a little charm set, Green Lantern. It was $6.99. And this is what I ended up with. There was no little crystal in the center. What I ended up doing was buying these little jeweled beads. It was $3.99. So I basically paid, I got all these, but I didn't want these. I basically paid $3.99 for one. So yeah. And initially, I had started patterning and I decided to actually try to make all this out of something or other. Foam, packaging plastic, scrap plastic I had lying around, resin, pretty much anything. At one point I thought about making it out of Sculpey, but I didn't know how smooth I'd ultimately be able to get it. I think this is going to be a nice, inexpensive, pretty good looking replacement. Okay. So to make the pattern for my EVA foam to cover this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of notebook paper. I'm going to fold it into fours, and right here on the corner, I'm going to make sure this is nice and flat, because on this corner here, I'm going to place this with the corner being in the center of it, and I'm going to draw a little half circle around it. Okay, now that that's drawn, with the paper facing this way, I'm going to go ahead and extend this up with the pen, and that is basically going to make my ring pattern. Okay, now I'm going to take scissors and I'm going to cut this out. When I cut it out, I'm going to smooth and even this off. Whenever I'm done and I open it up, it's going to look like this. So there I have my pattern. This will fit in the middle, and this will cover the actual base of the ring. Alright, next I took my pattern and traced it onto some EVA foam, EVA craft foam, and this is the 3mm. Alright, next I took my charm and I broke off the little ring that held the little clasp or whatever that you could hook it onto an actual charm. I broke that off and I sanded it. I also sanded down the entirety of the side. And the reason why I did that is just to help the glue to work a little better, hopefully. And I took this and drew out a circle in the center, and then I cut that out using an X-Acto knife. And I'm next going to take some super glue and I'm going to glue this into the center. Alright, now that I got the center all lined up and glued in with super glue, I put a bead of super glue along the back and I'm letting that set. And I put these two little reinforcement pieces also to fill the gap, because this top part's going to be pretty flat and pretty bulky on my finger. But the sides are going to go around and meet even with this. So I've started by putting some super glue and gluing this into the center of these two little EVA foam support pieces. The two little pieces are 2mm EVA foam. They are not the 3mm that is on the side. Alright, using super glue yet again, I glued the foam together and also put some on the actual under part of the ring here itself. The metal part that you see, so that it glues to it. And what I've been doing since then is I put some heat to it to curve and give it an actual ring shape. Otherwise it was really flat and really blunt. But by heating the foam, I was able to get it to curve and hold a nice shape, and what I've been doing now is I've been sanding and evening the rest of this out. I want it to be as symmetrical as possible and to look like something that wasn't made in my kitchen. Alright, since I finished the sanding, I took and put a little heat on it to help smooth out some of the roughness from the sanding. And now I'm going to use a paintbrush and some Mod Podge to seal the foam. Alright, so I took and rolled up some pieces from a newspaper ad and stuck that in it to hold it while I paint it. I didn't do this, you'll notice, while I sealed it earlier, and that's because I didn't want the two to stick together. But I'm not so much worried about that with the paint. And I'm going to go ahead and use a brush and paint this with Shamrock Green acrylic craft paint. Alright, here it is after 3 coats. And it took about 3 coats just to get the green a nice, even, consistent color. Not seeing any of the brush strokes going through. And it's kind of dull though. I'd like it to be a little more glossy. So I'm going to use the only thing at my disposal, which is some high gloss lacquer. Alright, while I'm waiting on the lacquer for the ring to dry, I'm going to go ahead and start making my lantern. And I was on an extreme budget for this. I don't have hardly any money. So I went and I got some cups from the dollar store that have the shape basically that I wanted. And this is going to work as the bottom and the top pieces. And I also have here a coffee can. I already went and took and tore off the label, and I've traced around these because I'm going to cut holes, slide them through, put them in place, level them out, and then hot glue them eventually. And I don't want to just paint over this, not with all these ridges and ribs and stuff on it. Also, there's all this torn up stuff. So what I've done is I found some packaging plastic I had saved, and it was pretty rigid. So I took it and rolled it up. First I took the creases out of it as much as I could. And then I just rolled it up and put it in here. And I'm going to contact cement that over this. And I'm going to need a lot of contact cement for this. I also have a light here that I got from a headlamp. That's going to go in the bottom piece so I can turn it off and on and have this light up. I'm going to tint this green. And this is a Christmas ornament that you make yourself. And I picked this up at Hobby Lobby. It was $1.79. That's going to be the lens on the front where you would actually charge your ring. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and my packaging plastic here, and I'm going to go ahead and contact cement the two together. Alright, I have glued my clear plastic over this, and next what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the holes here that I drew on here, the two circular holes, but first I'm going to start prepping these to get glued in. This one is going to be on the bottom, and it's going to have a light set in it around there. So I have to start getting all that ready and beefed up and put in place. And for the top, I just sealed it off with a piece of EVA foam that I put a little bit of a curve on, and that's just going to sit up on top. Right, I have cut out the holes for the top and bottom in this can with an X-Acto knife, and I took, for the top piece, as I showed a little bit earlier, I put a piece in here and I glued it in with some super glue. It wasn't holding the best, so I did seal it on the inside of the cup with some hot glue. Then I just kind of jammed this other piece in here and glued it in with some hot glue. And that's pretty much it for the top. That's just going to go in there and sit there. And I'm going to hot glue this and the bottom in from the inside though, so you don't see the bead of glue on the outside. Now for the bottom piece, I didn't close anything up yet because I need to put a light in it. And the light, like I say, is from a headlamp. I cut a hole in a piece of EVA foam mat. I just kind of crudely hot glued this in, but making sure that, you know, I could still open up the battery compartment and still be able to turn it off and on. And the light's pretty bright. I'm going to tint this green at the end, but for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and insert this inside here, deep enough that it fits snug, but not too deep. And I'm going to go ahead and hot glue that in place. Alright, I tinted my light here, and I had a color disc from Ultra Sabers that turned it green. But realistically, all you really need to do is, if you have any sort of marker that's not a paint marker, like a Sharpie for example, you could just color your lens green and it should shine through it. Since it's not opaque, it's transparent. Now to make the cover for this, where the globe is going to shine, I took a piece of 5mm EVA foam and I traced on it the top of this, and I cut it out into a circle, and then I cut out the center. The center I cut out smaller than the actual ball because this is going to sit like this. And this whole piece is going to be glued inside the front, and the light should be reflected out, giving it a nice eerie green. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this together using some hot glue. Alright, now this is all glued and could eventually be put in here. First, what I want to do is I want to take and put these two in their respective holes and glue them in with some hot glue. I'm going to glue it on the inside so you don't see the glue itself. Alright, so the first thing I've glued in is the bottom of this. That way I have a reference point as to how level I need the top and everything else. And the next thing I'm going to do after that is I'm going to work on the handle. I'm actually going to paint this separate by hand. I'm going to mask this off whenever I airbrush the whole entire thing, because I really don't want any paint getting on this globe at all. And I don't want to have to deal with peeling the masking tape off of it. So I'm just going to seal and paint this part by hand and glue it in last. Alright, so I glued the top piece in, and before I glued it in, I took and painted it white with some acrylic craft paint. It's pretty rough, it's not perfect, I don't care. It's just to help reflect and disperse the light. And next I marked on the sides, on each side, where I'm going to punch the holes for my handle. Now I haven't got into this much yet because there's really not much to it. I just took an old wire hanger, cut it to the length that I wanted, and then bended it, which is actually harder than you would think to get a nice, even, rounded out bend. But it took some time. But yeah, there's the handle. So I'm going to go ahead and punch some holes and put my handle in. Alright, I have my handle glued on here, and next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of paper that I cut out and some masking tape. I'm going to mask off this hole here. Alright, now that this is all masked up, I'm going to go ahead and mix up some paint and start airbrushing this. Alright, now that the body has been painted and is drying, I'm going to use some Mod Podge, and I'm going to go ahead and brush that on. Alright, once this dries, I'm going to go ahead and hand paint this green. So I already went ahead and put one coat on it, and I'm going to have to put at least two more because you can see the lines and the brush strokes so I can get a nice solid color. But I just wanted to point out real quick that I did paint around the inside. And the reason for that is whenever I put it in, since the back is metallic, you can see the reflection of the blue. Of course, this edge is going to be glued to the edge of the can itself, but any exposed area I just wanted to cover up. Didn't do a great job, doesn't matter, just covered up most of the blue. Alright, next I'm going to remove the masking, and then I'm going to go ahead and use some contact cement, and I'm going to glue this in there. Okay, it's all glued in. However, there is some areas I'm going to have to touch up with the brush real quick due to the masking and the gluing, but that's not a big deal. It'll only take a couple minutes. Alright, the paint's dried, and just testing out the light here. It is rather bright, and that's of course on the highest setting, and yeah, pretty intense. So the final thing I'm going to do for this is I'm going to go out and lacquer this so that it has a nice shine. But first, I'm going to try to charge this ring up. Alright, so that's it for the ring and the power ring and the power battery. I really like the ring. Pretty stoked on this. I would have preferred to use some different materials, but after I spent the money on the ring, I just kind of ran out of money. I'm still pretty happy with this, and hopefully you guys got some ideas from this and enjoyed the video. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a great day.